In 2008, Samuel Kucheto Ablakwa and Dr. Edward Omani Buama, now Deputy Ministers of Information and Deputy Minister for Youth and Sports, respectively, filed a suit at the Supreme Court seeking a declaration to stop the sale of a government bungalow on 5th Mungu Street, Rich, to Jake Obechebi Lamte, a former Chief of Staff, a Cabinet Minister, a contestant in the 17-man NPP presidential race soon after he resigned from office. Though Jake Obechebi Lamte resigned from office, he continued to reside in the said bungalow until the NPP lost elections in 2008, after he supervised the renovation of the said property to his taste with scarce state resources. The Supreme Court, by a majority decision on Tuesday, May 22, 2012, ruled against the application of plaintiffs in the case and has thus elicited different responses from the public, political watchers, legal practitioners, and moral society. Tonight on Majority Caucus, we shall review the issues raised in the judgments and the decision by government not to proceed with the sale of the property. Has government acted in good faith? My guests for tonight, Abraham Amaliba, a legal practitioner, and Roxanne Nelson Dapamepo, also a legal practitioner, are here to help us with the discussion. Gentlemen, I welcome you to Majority Caucus.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, for Abraham, I think this is your first time.
This is my first time
on the program. And then for Roxanne, I think
so my second time.
Yeah, this is your second time on Majority Caucus. You are warmly welcome.
Thank you.
Let's go straight to the discussion on the Jake Bungalow issue. The crux of the matter is a statement issued by government to recall the sale of the said property. And if I can read portions of the statement, the government has decided not to sell the controversial state land and bungalow former Minister of New Patriotic Chairman Obechebi Lamte is said to have bought. A statement by the Information Ministry says Cabinet took this decision at its meeting today, describing the decision to be, and I quote, in the supreme interest of the people of Ghana and taking cognizance of the Supreme Court's ruling in the matter of Mr. Obechebi Lamte's immoral acquisition of a state property he occupied as Minister of State. The statement titled, Government will not sell properties to Jake Obechebi Lamte, and signed by Information Minister Fritz Barfor said, and I quote, the property in question thus continues to remain the property of the state. Cabinet has also decided that no political appointee should ever be allowed to engage in such unacceptable transaction, unquote. Back to Abraham. You are a legal practitioner of many years of practice. What do you make foremost of the Supreme Court decision? It was a 6-3 majority decision. What do you make foremost of that decision?
Let me start by saying good evening to our viewers. In my humble opinion, the effect of the Supreme Court decision has some far-reaching implications on how government officials and state authorities would begin to conduct themselves henceforth. Okay. Because when you look at the decision, it seeks to say that, well, state officials, government officials can go ahead and appropriate to themselves property belonging to all of us. That's the implication of it. Okay. And I think that the Supreme Court lost the opportunity once again to assist in the fight against corruption. And so when I'm speaking about these matters, I want to dove my heart for the 3 judges who dissented. They will go down in history as judges who have fought for the people of this country by ensuring that at least they made a point that it is important for state property to belong to the people of this country.
Okay, let me come to Roxanne. Roxanne, the argument has been that the Supreme Court dismissed the application based on the issues of conflicts of interest, chronism, and then some other corruption that was leveled against Jake by as a lawyer going to court on these 3 bases. Were the bases tenable enough to require a judgment in their favor?
And thank you very much. May I take this opportunity to say good evening to our lovely listeners, including my constituents, Southern. Now, it's very important that we understand the issues that were filed in court. And out of the many issues that were filed by the parties, the Supreme Court, in its own wisdom, crafted other issues out of those.
Okay.
And determined the application on its merits. Now, if you take the ruling as crafted by our own erudite Bruby, the essence of his ruling or his reasoning was that on the preponderance of probabilities, the applicants failed to satisfy their plaint before them, and therefore they dismiss the application. And if you also saw, or if you read the minority opinion as authored by our very own, I consider him as one of the last very good judges that we have, Atuguba JSC. His position was that the court had the opportunity to determine whether or not the state was in a position to undertake this transaction, considering the enormity of the accommodation, the welfare situation, particularly accommodation problems facing the state. So the jurisprudence is that you cannot be seen to be selling properties or accommodation, landed property, to individuals, private citizens, when in the same breath you are looking for funding to provide accommodation for
the same people.
For the same people. That was the essence of the very learned Atuguba JS's reasoning. So you can always pan and find wisdom in these two positions. You understand? So as a practitioner, you have to be careful because they all make sense. But what does it inure to the benefit of the generality of the populace? Particularly, it was not the decision as to whether or not Jake is the owner of the property. But the issue for me, as I gathered from the decision or the ruling, was the processes leading to the consummation of the transaction or of the contract.
In the case that you mean, in the case that the issue was not, the property was not advertised as it's supposed to have been done in the papers.
Those were the plaints of the plaintiffs. You call them plaints, that they are paying. Their complaint to the court that certain conditions have occasioned it in such a way that the transaction was not fairly done. And therefore, Jake, by virtue of his position, must have
influenced the process.
And the Supreme Court said, very well, you have standards. So persuade me that by these standards, we must find for you. And the majority of the bench is saying, you could not persuade us. So
to prove the chronism, the conflict of interest, and the corruption.
It's not really about proof. When you say proof, you can prove. But do you meet the standard? It's a gauge. For instance, a glass of water can be half full, but it is not full to the brim.
So you need to prove to
you
the
need
standard.
to meet the standard. That's Brobate's concern, that you have not met the standard that is expected of applicants in applications of this nature. So I am okay. But the other argument has been that the cabinet decision, therefore, in order to rescind from the contract of sale of the said property to Jake, is in contravention, is flouts the decision of the Supreme Court. And that is where my focus is.
We'll come to that. Counsel, before we went on the break, we're looking at the government's statements describing the whole transaction as an immoral transaction. The fallout had been that in the court of law, there's nothing about morality or immorality. So government did not get it right, describing the entire transaction as immoral. What is your position on this?
I disagree entirely with those who say that law, there's no morality in law. Indeed, at the fringes of law is morality. And that is why even you see that there's some coincidence between the Constitution, we say chapter 1, and in the Bible, chapter 1. You get the point?
Yeah.
So you cannot divorce morality from law.
Okay.
At the fringes of morality is the law. But I indicate that public policy is one of the principles used in determining cases.
That's the interest of the public.
And encapsulated into this public policy is public interest, the general good. Lord Denning, in one of his books, The Due Process of Law, said that the law must be interpreted to save mankind and not mankind for the law. So you begin to ask yourself, what is the benefit of this judgment to the people of Ghana? It has no benefit to the people of Ghana. Rather, what the judgment has done is to take away the property that belongs to all of us and give it to one person. And the circumstances under which that person acquired the property is what I would say in law is unconscionable. You live in a government bungalow, you use state resources to refurbish the bungalow to your taste, then you put in an application to acquire that bungalow. Indeed, in some jurisdictions, some other civilized jurisdictions, I didn't say some civilized jurisdictions, we are also civilized, but some other civilized jurisdictions, this would have called for the arrest of this public official who has done this. Now people say that Jake was not in public office. I beg to differ. The circumstance under which he left office was not as if he did not want to belong to office again. He only resigned to take up even a much bigger role in government, because he would have been a flag bearer of a ruling government. And he still remained an integral part of the party in power. And so he still had influence. I expected the Supreme Court to take all this into consideration, to say that, yes, the man still could pull the strings even though he wasn't in government. And I thought that using the public policy principle, the Supreme Court would have arrived at a conclusion that in all these matters, yes, we agree, they could not prove conflict of interest. Indeed, conflict of interest, the Supreme Court said they should go to Shiraj. They could not prove issues relating to chronism, arbitrariness, and all those things. But at the core of the suit was the sale of government property
to members of the same government.
To members of the same government. And that is the issue that ordinary Ghanaians are interested in. The Supreme Court had the powers to declare that sale as unconscionable. And indeed, the Supreme Court failed when it said that this was a government policy which started in 1995. But my understanding was that it meant that their hands are tied. I thought the Supreme Court could have shut down that policy and say that in the interest of the public good, that policy was a bad policy. Because judges make law, and that would have been a pronouncement, and that would have been a law. We have judge-made laws. It's not only Parliament that makes laws. And so that policy could have been struck down by the Supreme Court and say that, look, this policy does not inure to the benefit of Ghanaians.
Okay. Let me come to Roxanne. Roxanne, there are many people who think that, especially those of us who don't really understand the law the way you do as practitioners, who think that by this decision, government appointees now are free. Their hands, the floodgates have been opened. There's a blank check for any government officials to go out there to apply for the bungalow he or she is occupying. Is that exactly what the ruling means?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Now, this ruling, you know, Supreme Court decisions are often called rulings. This ruling only determined the application in respect of the Mango Street bungalow in question.
Alone?
Alone.
Okay.
And on its merits. Nowhere in the decision did the court say that they were giving green light for the wholesale implementation of the said policy. Nowhere. And in fact, also nowhere in the decision did the court say that they were declaring title for Jake, because it was not before them. even though the court as constituted on the day could have applied the Hanasi doctrine,
Which is?
which is that a party may be granted certain reliefs even though he or she did not ask.
Okay.
No, even though he or she did not ask for same
Okay.
in a matter before them.
Okay.
When doing so would have ensured a substantial administration of justice in the particular matter. So the court, either by hindsight or by omission, didn't do that. So if it is established that proper title is yet to be transferred to Jake, then he still has problems.
Okay.
He has to go and perfect it.
Okay.
Now, how do you do it? He will only have to go back to court.
Even before, even
Yes.
before we even come
Now, so the ruling by the Supreme Court is not in any way giving a go-ahead for the policy to be implemented haphazardly, so to speak. It only dealt with one matter that came before them, and that was the simpliciter.
But Jake was still occupying that property until 2008 December, when the MPP lost the elections. Even after he has resigned from office, he was still living in the property, the same property.
I agree, but your question was that the interpretation being placed on the decision or the ruling of the Supreme Court was that it then gave
everybody
a
the
blanket
opportunity to
check.
do
So I'll speak in terms of
Okay.
NDC,
Okay.
because it's the NDC that's forming the government now. So for instance, by implication, we are saying that NDC officials, as they are now, could then put in a wholesale application to IE request for whichever property they occupy as of now to be leased, or for their interest to be assigned, the state's interest to be assigned to them individually. And I'm saying
That
this
is
is
not the
not
case.
what the decision is saying.
Okay.
Even though the general interpretation could be that if NDC officials do it now, then there will be no basis for criticism.
Okay.
But the decision actually looked at the processes leading to the transfer of the property in question, but not the policy whether or not state bungalows should be sold to public officers or private citizens.
Okay.
He dealt with what came before the court was what processes did Jake go through for him
To get to that point.
to get to the point where he could apply and conveniently got the bungalow so assigned to him, supposedly.
Okay. All right.
But you see,
Because we cited a lot of factors along the way that by virtue of his being friends with whoever were in charge, he abused
That office.
that office.
Okay.
I
Abraham, if
want
you
to
add-
slightly disagree with my learned friend
Okay.
here. You see, he has the benefit of the law, and so he can sift. And
Can understand
then-
the technicalities
and technicality, and
yeah.
understand that it is in respect of this bungalow number 13 bungalow. Never. The ordinary man there, and you saw it.
Yeah.
People like Chokwayo have applied to buy Job 600.
Nilante has applied to buy a
and
certain
even
bungalow.
the ruling, the ruling by the Supreme Court quickly mentioned that this is not to say that we are giving a license for people to go about buying government bungalows.
Okay.
So the Supreme Court itself knew that if they don't make this
Possible
clarification,
It
they
will-
knew
it will-
it would
it will
trigger
lead-
these things.
Okay. So they
people
put
are
that
doing
caveat in the
yes,
judgment.
exactly, just caveat in it, try
Okay.
to stop it.
Okay.
But the ordinary Ghanaian will see it like that,
Okay.
and we think that we can all apply.
Okay.
And somebody says he's even applying for the Accra Sports Stadium.
That's interesting. Let me come to Abraham. The fallouts from this entire decision. Aikwe O2 and some members of the MPP, some former government functionaries, are saying that the president should be impeached because he has issued what they described as an executive, and they call it an executive judgment. Yeah. Should we buy into these arguments?
Let me say that it is not everything which is illegal which is unconstitutional.
Okay.
The Constitution is the highest law in the land. But you can conduct yourself in ways which infringes the laws, but it's not infringing upon the Constitution. So it's not everything which is illegal, which is unconstitutional. And I want this to sink well. The transaction between the state and Jake is purely contractual. So if there's an illegality, it affects contract.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with the Constitution. Okay. I hear the other side say that the cabinet decision has breached Article 2. And when you read Article 2, just off on top of my, because for the lack of time, says that anybody to whom an order or a directive is made and who disobeys that order or directive commits a crime. And for the president or vice president, it could lead to impeachment. The question we need to ask ourselves is that, was there an order made by the Supreme Court? An order will sound like this. Those who don't know what orders are, they will sound like this. It is hereby ordered, then they will mention you to do something.
Okay.
It is hereby adjudged, then they will mention you to do something. It is hereby decreed. These are orders.
It is hereby directed.
Directed. These are examples of orders. But the Supreme Court simply said that plaintiffs, you could not prove this. These are not orders. And so, to say that the cabinet and president has defied Article 2, and for that matter would call for impeachment is far-fetched. And it's a mischief on the part of those who are saying that. This is not the kind of situation where we found ourselves in which a judgment was given and the Prime Minister said, no court, no court. This is not the situation in which a citizen went to court, got judgment to be reinstated at work, and the government refused. This is not one of it.
That is the whole Darokai
case. And so if that did not call for the impeachment of those presidents, I can't see how this is. And I think that we all can read the law. I don't think that we should buy into that idea. Because the Constitution just places limits. That's what we call constitutionalism, which means placing limits on what we can do. And so when you look at what happened, Jake has a right to go to court and sue the government for breach of contract. And if the court is minded, the court will give Jake some relief, such as damages or specific performance. It has nothing to do with the Constitution at all. And this cannot call for the impeachment of the president.
Okay, yeah, Roxanne. When you look at in the past, the number of people who have benefited from this thing is raising serious question marks. Should we continue on this path, or should end somewhere?
For me, the policy in question is an unconscionable one. It must be discontinued forthwith. So that's my view.
Okay.
Because the state continues to compulsorily acquire lands from individuals, from traditional areas, from stools. And sometimes compensation payments become problem. So why would you assign your interest in lands compulsorily acquired in times past to private citizens, and yet 50 years down the line you continue to compulsorily acquire lands of private citizens, stools, traditional areas and all that, pay compensation for, only to give it back to private citizens in the future? Once you acquire for a purpose, if you do not need the land for the purposes for which you compulsorily acquire it,
you give it back to the owners.
That's all. Now, as to the argument of, or the issues raised by my very, very learned brother, Aikwe Utu, as to the possibility of impeaching our own president on these matters, it's a very wicked argument to make.
Very mischievous.
Very wicked one. Because clearly, this Supreme Court ruling did not make any orders. It did not say that we are declaring title for Jake, even though they could have done so by the doctrine that I mentioned, the Anansi doctrine. They did not, because they knew if they do, it could create problems. So, cabinet. I believe that they said the policy originated from cabinet some time ago.
Yeah, actually, the policies are actually two. Yes. Apart from the Accra redevelopment policy that started during the first NDC government.
There's a Kumasi one.
Exactly, and even the policy, by my understanding of the policy, it was made to collapse old bungalows sitting on very large parcels of lands, so that the lands can be redeveloped to house civil servants. But somewhere between 2003 and 2008, the MPP introduced another policy, which they call the protocol allocation, and then the infilling.
Very well.
And some judges even suffered the embarrassment.
I remember may his soul rest in perfect peace. Ajoy JSC was sick. One time we went to visit him, and we had difficulty assessing his bungalow, because his bungalow was sitting in an oblique manner on the land, and portions of the land had been walled off.
They were sold off, portions of the land.
I wouldn't say sold off, but they have been walled off.
By different owners.
It means the interest in that parcel section of his bungalow land has been cordoned off.
Wow.
And construction was ongoing. And this was a man who was sick, Supreme Court judge. Do you understand? So I wouldn't go there.
Okay.
Because the family went through a lot of pain as a result of the adverse effects of this policy. So for me, Aikwe Utu cannot be heard to be saying that we could impeach, or impeachment proceedings could be initiated against the president for a cabinet that he chairs. And he, you see, the cabinet is not different. We may have different constituents or different persons constituting cabinet at a time. But the cabinet, Ghana's cabinet, is always Ghana's cabinet.
Okay. So decisions that are taken by a former cabinet, it's the decision of cabinet and not the decision of a government.
So in the interest of the public, and of course in consonance with the public moral issues, cabinet can decide that today we are discontinuing with this policy. And particularly, we are reselling from a contract that we supposedly have entered into with an individual.
Okay.
If the individual is so pained and aggrieved, your remedy is that you have recourse to the court and sue. You go against the government or the state in specific performance. That, look, I have given you money. You have taken my money with the promise that you give me land. You have not perfected my title. So if you are reselling at this stage, I'm sorry, you cannot. For the court to decide.
Okay.
Like he said, if the court is minded, he will grant you an equitable relief, which is the specific performance.
Okay.
Now, those are also hindered by certain factors. Is the land available at all? The court may not give an order that the defendant cannot comply with. You understand? So, they can only sue for a declaration of title and other things. If you can ask for damages, if you think that damages will not be sufficient, you ask for specific performance, equitable relief. That no, I still want my land. Now, you can also say that I want my land in addition to damages.
Okay. Okay.
So this cannot be a basis, because the Supreme Court ruling
has not directed,
been flouted, been overreached, been violated. Not even in one paragraph.
Okay. Okay.
It is nowhere.
Okay. Abraham, if you want to add.
Yes, I just want to add. Is the cabinet decision a proper one? And I'll say yes. Under the Constitution, all public lands, which belongs to all of us as Ghanaians, is vested in the president, who holds it in trust
For the people.
for the people of Ghana.
So
But
he's the chief landlord.
He's the chief landlord. He's even the allodial title, the highest for all of us. And the management of those lands are in the hands of the Lands Commission. So you have the people of Ghana first, the president second, then the commission third. And so when you look at the Supreme Court decision, it said that this is a government policy, meaning that the Supreme Court had thrown back the issues or the policy to government.
The propriety of it.
Now, the president exercising that right or power vested in him as a trustee. And when you say you are a trustee, you have an onerous responsibility to ensure, to protect that property. Now says that, look, I acknowledge, and in the cabinet memo or decision, it acknowledged Supreme Court ruling and gave respect and accorded that respect. But said that we will have to take charge and take responsibility as the custodians of the land to ensure that the people, look at the uproar that the judgment generated. So the government needed to come in to salvage the situation. And I don't see anything wrong. Indeed, his actions and the action of cabinet are in tandem with the Constitution.
Okay, all right, okay. His action and the actions of government is in tandem with the Constitution. Yeah, Roxanne, where do we go from here? Should governments abhor the entire practice? Should the entire practice, should it be open to a national debate, or government should just simply take the decision to annul this policy once and for all? I think before you even come to you, we have our first caller. Hello?
Hello, good evening, Mr. Host.
Yeah, good evening, Abbas.
This is Babs calling from Bolga.
Okay.
Good evening to your honorable guest of Majority Caucus. I believe we are in the era whereby everything is about equalization. I believe if Kwame Nkrumah had allowed all his people to buy the government bungalows, I don't believe the Second Republic, which was Busia Dankwa government, would have met any bungalow to occupy. Neither Dr. Liman or Rawlings or Kufuor, not even to talk of Professor Mills. And MPP, they came only 8 years. They have bought so many houses, whereby, why are they thinking that the next government, which is NDC government, would have said, if NDC had bought them, why would they also have occupied?
Okay.
So assuming today President Mills should buy the castle and the state house, the next government coming, where are they going to stay?
Okay, thank you so much.
And they equalize it.
Okay, thank you very much, Babs. Let me take Issa from Wa. Hello, Issa.
Yeah, hello, good evening. This is Issa Kantajer calling from Wa.
Okay.
Let me first of all say a very big thank you to you and then the two learned brothers who are doing a yeoman's job. May God continue to shower his blessings upon you people so that you can continue to educate with the young ones. But I just want to say that, in fact, MPP as a party is a property-owning party. That is when they were in power. They just tried selling all government properties to themselves. But we just want to say that Ghanaians are seeing NDC as a party is out for our good. So let us all join hands to support the president so that the president can continue to retrieve all our lands that were wrongly or unwillfully acquired by MPP.
Okay.
If we make a mistake and bring MPP back to power, they will even acquire most of our land.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to say that let us continue to have faith in President Mills. I believe, inshallah, Mills will not even loot a penny of Ghana's property.
Okay,
Mills
thank
will
you.
not even take just a plot away.
Okay, thank you, Issa. Let me pick another colleague from Wa. Hello.
I am Babs Osman, also Babs from the Upper West region.
Okay, Babs
Yeah,
Osman.
I think words are inadequate to hail, my learned uncles that are sitting there in the studio. They have made my day. Yeah, I think obviously, land belonging to Ghanaians, a house belonging to Ghanaians, and the president taking the house or the land and giving it back to Ghanaians is a problem. I don't understand. MPP's no morality. I'm disappointed in them. No wonder we can really see that in them. I think morality, as my uncles have said, only beyond the fringes or within the fringes of the law lies morality. And that's why even me, I've not stepped even foot in the law school, but I know this one.
Okay.
I don't understand why it is taking the MPPs all my time to understand simple issues.
Okay, thank you very much, Issa Babs. Okay, thank you so much, Babs Osman. Let me take another caller. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, your name, please.
I'm James calling from Jindambo.
Okay, James. Hello. Hello. I'm sorry, we've lost James. I'm sorry, viewers. We've lost James.
Sincerely, I think that the policy should be discontinued.
Okay.
Like I said before, and we should rather make the effort to redevelop the land by using state resources to provide high-rise accommodation for public officers, civil servants who deserve it, and still make the effort to provide for the have-nots.
Okay, we have another caller. Let me pick this caller from Akosombo. Hello.
Hello, young man, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, my name is Daku from Akosombo.
Okay.
You see, I like the way you are speaking. I want to tell you people that you are young guys. You see, the lie in the propaganda will not help you people. I mean, you are nice guys. You are nice guys to join the better party. You don't understand the meaning of the NDC. It's not being a private comfort. That's why I've taken all the money to Wyoming. So please stop this propaganda.
And what has that got to do? What has that got to do with the discussion on the Jake Bungalow?
No. What that got to do is that you are not saying the truth.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Dankwa from Akosombo. Let me pick another caller from Tamil. Hello. Hello. I think I've lost that caller. Yes, Roxanne, if you can.
Yeah. So the way forward is that this policy should be discontinued, and the government has the power to discontinue. After all, policy emanates
from the people,
from the government.
Okay.
And it's implemented by them, and monitored by them, and evaluated by them. So if upon the evaluation of the implementation of this policy, we are having adverse consequences.
Okay. We have a caller from Techiman.
The state has the right to discontinue.
Hello?
Yeah, good evening. Your name, please.
Yeah, my problem is, I'm upon calling from Techiman.
Okay, Opong.
Why is the government not dealing with the policy first, but trying to attack personalities? That's my problem.
Okay.
And we think President Mills and his people should have thought of getting our money from Wyoming. That is so much than this one we are talking about.
Okay, that's your opinion. Thank you so much. We have another caller. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, good evening.
This is Owl good evening from Tamil.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, you're on air.
Please, what I'm just trying to say is the policy should be scrapped.
Okay.
So, government officials grabbing bungalows and all those things. That policy should be scrapped and no. Hello?
Yeah, you're still on air. If you can make it snappy.
That policy should be scrapped so that no government official will get a chance to,
okay. All right.
Okay. A bungalow.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me pick our last caller. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. This is Ernest from Wa.
Okay, Ernest.
Yes, I just want to thank you and my uncles with you. In fact, this evening they have made my night. And we, the people of Wa, really appreciate what you are doing. And we wish that many of such will be, such people to be brought to the studio dead for us. To talk to us, to really open so many things for us like they are doing today. And actually, in fact, I think President Mills is a chosen one. He has done to save this country for the mess we're in. Okay. And my prayer is that upon all the happening within the party and out of the party, that God will see, protect, and guide him through to the 7th December.
Okay,
and I know for sure, for the people of God, we know NDC has already won, because what they have been able to do, NDC has not done 15 of that.
All right. Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you so much. Yeah. Abraham.
Let me say this. You see, people are talking about the Wyoming issue. If you are on a crusade to kill mosquitoes, when you find mosquito anywhere, you kill it.
Okay.
It doesn't matter whether the mosquito is in your room or my room,
okay,
because you are on a crusade. So if we think that what happened with the Wyoming is bad, the same principle must be applied to Jake. The difference is that one is money, one is landed property. If Wyoming is bad, Jake's own also is filthy.
But even beyond that, I received a text message from Prince Derek J, and then he says that his people are not too comfortable with the fact that the land seems to be going to people, whilst they themselves, the indigents of the land, they don't seem to have lands available to them. Should they have every reason to not to be happy about what is going on?
They have, but under the laws, and there's a Supreme Court ruling on this matter. The principle is that if government no longer needs the land, it must return to its original owners.
Okay.
But the Supreme Court gave a ruling that this principle does not apply to lands that were acquired before the coming into force of the 1992 Constitution.
Oh, okay.
The principle only applies to lands which were acquired after the 1992 Constitution. So I want my brother Derek
I think that is clear enough.
And the policy, this is what Justice Atuguba said. Let me just quote him.
Yeah.
Here is a bungalow renovated and refurnished at very considerable cost to the nation to render it suitable for residence of a minister. The bungalow has been used for many years for public officials. The location of the house and the plot on which it stands are obviously strategic for easy access to the ministries, the hub of government activity. He says, judicial notice is taken of the scarcity of bungalows for high-ranking officials, including judges. You talk about Ofwe.
Yeah.
If the plot of land could be used for development of 3 blocks of flat, at least 4-story buildings, which the second defendant has undertaken to build under the terms of the grant, couldn't more bungalows be built by government for public officials being accommodated by that? So you see, my point is that this policy has been mutilated.
Okay.
The original policy was that we agreed the lands were so huge.
Yeah.
And so the original policy was that it was government in collaboration with Senate that would develop them into flats and build for government officials.
So they will collapse the old one and then raise flats?
They will not collapse. They will just chunk off the remaining part, build a high rise, and that was space. The occupied space. And that was for government Senate collaboration.
For workers?
For workers.
Okay.
Now MPP came in and said that government has no business to be in business. And so said that rather than government and Senate, they will give these lands to private individuals.
And the names,
and this is the problem.
And the names are scary. Dr. Deborah Yanka,
they are all private.
Digraph Yanka, Jacob Echebilamte, Nana Kwame Foriata, Professor Frimpong Boateng, Ivan Jimanduya, who is Kufuor's ex-president Kufuor's biographer, Ras Boateng, who was the National Health Insurance Board, George Benson, who was a minister, Henry Buama, who is Saud's son-in-law, Saud, the owner of the hotel. Yeah, Hotel so Wawa. Yeah. And then we Sheila Saki, who was the at the state protocol.
Yes.
And then Kwabna Sapong, Richard Anani, Teresa Tego, the late Fred Owari, who is the vice chairman of the NPP, Bafo Ajimanduya of the CDD, and then Kwame Edusei of the EO group. And the names goes on with the protocol allocation, Nana Yafebo, Egbefebo's wife, Larry Van Dosu, Deputy Bank of Ghana Governor, Sexual Bankwa, Prudential Bank MD, Selchum, Isikwe, Peter Osaiduya, EA also and who is a current MP for Kwabre, an MPP MP for Kwabre, Patrick Achampon, the former IGP, Asaria Kufo, HFC Bank MD, Ebenezer Sachi Hughes, who actually raided his bungalow, also went ahead and benefited from this land. So looking at some of these names, and then and that is I think that is why the people are unhappy about the fact that a government comes to serve for 4 years or 8 years and leaves by taking the property of the people away with them.
So this is not the original policy. The original policy was not to give these lands to private people to develop. It was for government in collaboration with Senate to develop these things and rent these places to the nurses, to teachers, and all those things.
Now,
I'm sorry,
I want to say something very small.
Yeah.
That by these revelations, the NDC officials should be very, very careful.
Okay.
So that they do not fall to the same error.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay.
So that's my humble
let me
advice.
on this note say thank you to all of you who watched us, especially those of you who join us around the world on www.multitvworld.com/streams, and to those who called into the program, those who sent text messages, and to my guests, legal practitioners, Abraham Amaliba and Roxanne Nelson Dapamepo. I say thank you, and to all of you out there, let us keep promoting peace, let's denounce violence, and let's work together to secure the peace of the 2012 general elections. And let's keep supporting the Better Ghana agenda.